Member Saanich North and the Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Young fishermen and women in once thriving resource economies on the coast have been priced out of the industry. Commercial fishery is organized into a system of quotas, effectively privatizing a natural resource owned by all British Columbians. Fisher women and men have to pay roughly 70% of the landed value of their catch to the corporation that owns the license. It has become increasingly difficult for fishermen to support themselves and their families, so much so that the number of people fishing commercially in BC has dropped from about 20,000 in 1985 to 5,000 in 2015. The federal government is doing a review of the Atlantic quota system, but refusing to do the same for our coast. Young fisher women and men are lobbying Ottawa on their own behalf to the federal government to change the quota system. They're the future of commercial fishing in BC and proving to be leaders of coastal communities. The provincial government has a real opportunity to be more vocal advocates for our youth leaders. My question through you, Honourable Speaker, to the Minister of Forest Lands, Natural Resource Operations and Rural Development: what substantive action is the province taking to support these young British Columbians?
Minister of Forest Lands, Natural Resources and Rural Development.
Very good. Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and thank you for the opportunity to speak on such an important topic, young people and the future of our fisheries resource in the province. And absolutely, BCers should be benefiting from the resources in the oceans that they have, the communities have at their front doorsteps. I can remember people in the area that I represent being upstream benefactors of the fisheries resource. There used to be processing facilities where there'd be an annual migration of people from upstream communities, and this wasn't in my constituency, but around the province down to the coast, to benefit from the kind of jobs that the member talks about. And today, these fisheries are still an economic driver in coastal communities and need to be protected for tomorrow and into future generations. I know the member knows that the Department of Fisheries and Oceans is responsible for the licensing that he refers to around owner-operator and around fleet separation policy. And while we're pleased to hear about the federal changes to the Fisheries Act, Honourable Speaker, we will be working closely, and we welcome the opportunity to work closely with the Department of Fisheries and Oceans to ensure that BC's interests are maintained in terms of conservation, which is primarily our responsibility, and advancing reconciliation objectives, which again is part of this government's important mandate, and maximizing the economic benefits in return to British Columbians.
Saanich North and the Islands on a supplemental.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And yes, absolutely. I know that the Department of Fisheries and Oceans has lots of jurisdiction when it comes to our fisheries. The province of British Columbia and the provincial government has a lot of responsibility in banging the drum very loudly for our economy and the economy of our coastal communities, and that's what I'm encouraging the government to do. Canada's Commissioner of the Environment and Sustainable Development released a report last month that I talked about in question period that concluded that DFO has not adequately managed the risks associated with the salmon farming industry and are failing their mandate to protect wild fish. Compounding that dismal report, scientists have now discovered and confirmed that the highly contagious virus impacting Atlantic salmon now also harms Pacific salmon and could pose a serious threat to BC's declining wild salmon populations if it spreads. Researchers found samples of in farmed Chinook and Atlantic salmon and confirmed the presence of the highly contagious piscine reovirus in both species. Fish farmers said it's not a problem. It's not a problem in their farms. And lead author of the study, Christine Miller from the DFO, said that something else is at stake here, and we have risk to the wild salmon. So my question, again, through you, Honourable Speaker, to the Minister of Forest Lands and Natural Resources: as I said in my morning statement, I have a commitment to ensuring our children and future generations inherit a world with salmon. How many more studies is it going to take before this government steps in?
Minister of Forest Lands, Natural Development and Rural Development.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and I welcome again the efforts of the member around ensuring that we have sustainable fisheries in BC. and again, point out that the federal responsibility in this area is paramount. However, we are focusing on what is within our jurisdiction constitutionally. That is the habitat protection to ensure that sustainable fisheries are able to proceed into the future, spawning channel concerns that we have jurisdiction over, sport fishing regulations as they apply to populations of endangered species and species at risk, and of course, and especially upholding the Department of Fisheries and Oceans responsibilities with respect to fish health. We'll be continuing to do this. I look forward to further discussions with the member on ensuring that this opportunity is available not just today, but enhanced into the future for young people, as he points out, and fishing-dependent communities all up and down the coast.